Flights of Fancy is a game about a topic near and dear to us all, that bitter bite of hops, that swift sip of starch and sugar, beer. Flights of Fancy is a dice drafting game where players draw dice representing specific beer properties such as color, flavor, and the type of glassware they are served in. Your job as an elite beer guzzling connoisseur is to create the perfect flight of beers. Let's learn to play. Each player begins with one of these flight boards and a tap list. In addition, a number of dice are used based on the player count. For 2 players, 8 red dice, 8 blue dice, and 8 green dice are randomly placed in this beer dice bag. Each player then receives one of these Beer Enthusiast cards, which is randomly drawn from the deck. Players will keep these cards secret, as they have information that will help players score more points for certain dice they have at the end of the game. These are victory coasters, each representing a specific fermented beverage. 8 of them are randomly placed face up in the middle of the table. Then the game begins, starting with the player who most recently purchased a beer. And that's purchased, not drank. We need to celebrate the real heroes. Now we'll turn to the tap list, which includes 2 things: the rules and how players score. The first player begins the game by drawing a number of dice at random from the bag. For example, in a 2-player game, 4 dice are drawn. These are then shaken, not stirred, and dropped to the waiting table below. Starting with the current player and moving clockwise, each player drafts 1 die to their flight board, which must be placed in the correct slot, depending on if it lists a color, flavor, or glassware type. Once placed, these cannot be moved. Players continue drafting dice to their boards in clockwise order until all of the dice are gone, and players must draft if they have open spaces for one of the remaining dice. If not, they pass. After a player drafts the color and flavor die that matches one of the shown victory coasters, they earn that coaster to their board. For example, this player has drafted a red color die and a malt flavor die, so they take the red lager coaster. Players do not require the correct glassware to place a coaster, but they will receive more points if they get the correct glassware before the end of the game. This player has cream ale colors and flavors, but does not have the correct glassware, so they will score 5 points plus the value in the first column on the tap list. Once a coaster has been taken from the table, a new one is drawn to replace it, and the game ends when all players have a full flight board. In order to score, players will take a look at the columns in the tap list, and then add up the values of the beers they have in their flights. If players match the correct glassware, they earn the points in the second column. If not, it's the first column. Each victory coaster is worth an additional 5 points to the player who has it, so players will want to be the first to create that type of beer. In addition, any skulls are worth an additional 5 points, while any beers that are spilled are worth 0 points regardless of any bonuses or victory coasters. Unknown beers that do not match any of those shown on the tap list are only worth 3 points. Finally, players reveal their Beer Enthusiast card, gaining points if they are able to complete any of those goals. A player with the cow, for example, will earn 4 extra points for any beer flavored with cream, while this card allows a player to earn bonus points for hoppy beers. The player with the highest point value at the end of the game wins.